Welcome, friends, to episode 269 of Color Magic, your magic and gaming podcast, where we talk about all types of issues that affect gamers at and away from your gaming tables and computers. I'm your host, PowrDragn, and for 269 episodes, apparently survived the holidays, my main man, Brian Allen's still with me. How you doing, dude?
Doing good. I'm sure I've gained way more pounds than I should have, but that's part of the
Hey,
tour.
bruh, hey, your woman's been doing some cooking over
Right?
on the YouTube, so somebody's got to eat it, you
Exactly.
know.
It's yeah. I'm sorry, doctor. I had to. It was for the YouTube, or for the
That's
algorithm, as they say.
that's the thing. People get mad at dudes for putting on weight. That means you just got some good eating at home. That's all that means. Can't be mad at that. Oh man. All right. So we have some fun stuff in this show. There's some crazy rumors and news that have both kind of hit during the holiday break. So we're gonna try to cover a lot of that. But before we get into it, don't forget if you want to support the show, check us out over at patreon.com/color of magic. You can get a shout out just like Joe Kapasansky. Thank you so much for supporting the show. But all right, there was a little thing that happened over the holiday break. Now, for those you don't know, a lot of times on Arena, Magic Arena, they will put themes of card styles or things you can get in the shop. Now, sometimes they're random cards, but usually it'll be based around a holiday or something. You know, they'll put for Valentine's Day a bunch of the cards that reference characters that liked each other, or maybe for St. Patrick's Day, it'll be a bunch of green cards in there, whatever. Well, this time, an interesting thing happened. We saw where they put some stuff up, and it's like, okay, a bunch of vehicles. That kind of makes sense. Aether Drift is coming. That's only a few weeks away. All right. And then it was like, oh, there's a bunch of dragons. That must be for Tarkir. And oh, there's a bunch of crystals, and that must be for Final Fantasy. And then we kind of went through all the sets. And then there was a last one that was a bunch of elements, and I think like a monk and something else. And people went, what the hell is this about? This doesn't, because they weren't random, because it wasn't like you're just gonna get a bunch of elemental things. So like there's something here. And then people went, okay, well, if they did all the sets in order, maybe this is saying we're going to get some Avatar: The Last Airbender as our last set of the year. And the only reason that's a thing is because I think early rumors were people there was split, but I think the side that was winning was that it was going to be Game of Thrones, right? Because there's a bunch of ways, bunch of licenses you could get with that, and it kind of makes sense,
Dragons,
fantasy based. Yeah,
yeah,
totally, right? So I get why
dragons,
people.
elves, or not elves, I don't guess, but dwarves, I guess.
Oh, true, dwarves are in there. So I get why people would buy into that. Makes sense. And I kind of went, yeah, Game of Thrones makes sense. We'll
White
see.
Walkers are basically like zombies.
True, true. But yeah, Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm like, okay,
Which also, because people
yeah,
manipulating the elements, it's kind of magical.
exactly. I'm like, you have some elements, you have a little bit of magic. There's some fighting. You do have a dragon thing, right? Like, so like, okay,
So it's
maybe,
so it's not from left field. It's not Doctor Who or somebody's
yeah.
wild.
I mean, you're still kind of casting spells and using magic of sorts. So I'm like, okay, I'm into it. But then I guess the question started becoming one, is it really going to happen? Or, are we misreading the tea leaves, as they say? Or two, that we talked about pre show is it popular enough to matter? Like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
it definitely used to be. Problem being, the last good thing they did was probably the Legend of Korra, and even that's been a long time. Because, like, my kids, for example, would probably know it primarily from the horrible M. Night Shyamalan movie, and then they did a
I
thing
didn't
on
even
Netflix.
see that.
Most people didn't. Then there was, I think, a Netflix adaptation, and if that had been all that was done, you wouldn't have Avatar wouldn't be popular. It's been a minute since they had an actual installment in the actual animated Avatar series that people grew up loving. So we'll see.
Dude, side note, because, I might as well start out 2025 getting hate. I actually like Legend of Korra more than I liked Avatar: Last Airbender. Like legit. I don't know. Like I had trouble getting through Avatar, but for some reason, Legend of Korra just hit me just right, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. So like I know some people will be like, how?
Hey,
But I'm
hey,
like,
hey,
man, I don't
hey,
know.
hey.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm gonna get all the player haters, but like, I don't know. Not to say that can't be worked in there. It's all the same universe, so who
Yeah,
knows?
I'm sure if it is Avatar, we're gonna get something from Korra.
Yeah, I think with it being the end of the year, because if I remember right on their timeline, it either had like a November, December like release on it where it was placed on the calendar. So if that's the case, that means it's more likely to be just like a commander set or something. Kind of how Doctor Who was when it released like late in the year and it was a couple of commander decks. And for that product, that kind of makes sense to me. Hell, you could even do them by the different elements or something or whatever if you wanted to and just make those the decks. But I don't think one that it even needs a full set realistically. I don't think the popularity is there that you need to put that much R&D into it. But also, it's kind of just like bonus money to make the fourth quarter look good at the end of the year. You know what I mean? It's not because we already know Final Fantasy, it's going to be a wrecking ball as soon as it shows up. We know Marvel's going to be a wrecking ball in the summer when it shows up. I wouldn't even be surprised if we get to the end of the year, or I guess technically we'll have to wait till 2026 for all the reports to come in. But to see that those two sets made up like 70% of the Magic sales for the year.
Easily, I expect that to happen.
Yeah, like if that happened, wouldn't be shocked. So it doesn't, the last set of the year doesn't need to be gangbusters. It just needs to not flop. And two, I guess in a way, you wouldn't want to blow a big license there, right? Because like if it's going to be bigger, you want it to be an opportunity where people have more money to spend on it, where they haven't just spent on all your other stuff all year, or they're not just spending on holiday gifts or something or whatever already. Get as much as you can out of the product. And I would have to think Last Airbender's license can't be that pricey right now. Like, I mean, I could be wrong because they still have a bunch of merch out there. I still see it when
Yeah,
I
and I
go to
mean
anime
you're
shops and
still
stuff.
dealing with Paramount, so it's they ain't gonna sell you any of their properties cheap.
Yeah, but I meant like, but comparatively to some of these other licenses they're buying or partnering with, I have a hard time. I mean, but again, you're right. It's a studio. They might just value all their licenses highly.
Yeah,
It might just be expensive. Who knows? So
Paramount gonna
yeah,
be like, you came to us, we didn't come to you.
it's possible. I mean, that's a real thing. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. Like my gut says it will sell well enough because, the Magic player base does tend to be a bit older.
Yeah.
There's still some people attached to Avatar. I still see it on people's stuff and reference. So like it'll sell well enough. I don't think it'll go crazy, but kind of some of the other things too. When you talk about stuff like we've had like Fallout and whatever,
Yeah.
those aren't as big as Doctor Who, but they still sold solid.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, why not? Let's just take a shot and see what happens. And probably good for Wizards to do this too. Place it in a spot where it doesn't hurt you if it doesn't go gangbusters. And you can also gauge, like, I guess, that tier of a license partner. Because, right? Because we know all the other ones have been big ones. We're going after the monsters, right? But
Yeah.
at some point, you go, hey, we do need to have some decent fillers. Let's see how people feel about something like Avatar. And then you could start exploring, like, okay, well, now are there other animes we could go get and do? Right. And I don't
Also,
know.
there aren't that many monsters because once you've done Marvel, probably the only thing that's close to
Sure.
that big is DC and Warner Bros. On fire. They don't even enjoy making money. They might not sell you the license no matter how much money you offer them.
Oh, no doubt. But it could also start a trend, depending on how it sells, of maybe the last set of the year is just an anime licensed product, that gets universes beyond. And there's a lot you could do if Avatar does okay, depending on what the price is, right? That's always going to be the name of the game, right? How much does a license cost for you to even try the project? But I don't know. I'm into it. The clues say it could happen. It's an interesting rumor. We're not going to know till probably they make an announcement at Vegas during the summer or something. But I'm here for it. I think that'll please enough people that it's not a crazy idea. But all right, let's take this into the soapbox for a second because I do have a gripe. And this one comes back to a thing, and I've had some variation of this complaint before, but during the holiday break, it felt like it was rampant on all the social media stuff I saw. Hell, even on my own social media stuff. People were wanting to make a comment before even consuming the in the post, whether it was read it or watch the video or whatever. I had people watch a YouTube video of mine and go, "Oh, but you should be doing XYZ, or you should be playing this card or that card." When clearly there's a thing we're working on in the video, right? I've said doing this for this reason with these cards, blah, blah, and people are still going, but you could. And I'm like, yes, we know I could. I have another video where I did that. But like, that's not what I stated we're doing in this video. Like, what is compelling people to just rush to make a comment on a thing they've not even taken the time to educate themselves about? Hell, I saw one, somebody was complaining about how people are letting their kids do this and this and how dangerous it, and like the parent was the one filming right there on camera supervising. It wasn't like the kids were just on their own doing this insane thing. It's like people, everybody just trying to have I think we've just gotten too used to everybody thinking they need to be heard. I think that's the problem. Some of us just don't need to be heard all the time. Hell, I have platforms where I get to talk and I still don't let myself be heard all the time. Like we just don't need to be, man. Like this comes back to coach. Just don't hit send. Like you just don't need to all the time. Nothing. Oftentimes I ask people, and this is why I stop myself, is really two things. One, if I post this, am I helping anybody? Whether it's to help the person I want to support in the actual post or video, is it educating anybody? Is it correcting a misunderstanding? Whatever. Or do I have time today to deal with the knuckleheads that are going to come as soon as I make this comment? Right? Like those two things determine a lot of what I post on social media. People got to just set some breaks and some parameters sometimes. Cuz and the worst thing is, y'all, if you're wrong, just take the L. Like I'm watching people be wrong because they didn't consume the thing. People will correct them and then they'll still give the, well, but it could have been, or but it obviously wasn't. Right? Like it wasn't what you thought it was and you didn't take the time. Just say, hey, my bad. Maybe I should have watched the video first, or maybe I should have read the article for hell, especially if you just see a headline that gets reshared or retweeted on social media. Because well as I do, people just write headlines just for sensationalism. And then you read the article and be like, oh, but it's a business deal falling apart because they made an agreement with this other thing. Not that just this thing is going away, right? Realistically, though, y'all just slow down. Slow down. Like, literally consume the thing. Basically, this try your best to understand the thing that you're about to leave a comment on. Don't just do it out of emotion. Just don't do it out of reaction. Like, take the time because somebody took the time. They thought it was important to share that with you, to produce that piece of art, whatever it is. Take the time to understand it, then leave your comment. And you'd be surprised how often your comments are going to change, or you're going to put yourself in a position where you don't even want to leave a comment. And then your life is free to not have to respond to everybody hating on you. There you go. Your turn.
So speaking of, F Hulk Hogan, or I guess just F all the consumers, Facebook apparently has announced a bunch of things saying, Furl, they're not gonna have third party fact checking. They're gonna move to community notes. Okay, God help us. You're doing it the way X is doing it. That may, oof. And apparently they're going to relax restrictions on a lot of their topics, including apparently if you would like to go on Facebook and declare that being gay or being trans is a mental illness, Facebook will apparently allow you to do that in 2025. If you want, that's just, I mean, I guess I can maybe kind of see where the third party fact checking is coming from. I don't agree with it, but maybe I could see it. The other change is like, so you're just going to allow hate speech on your platform. It's basically what you've decided in 2025, which is kind
I
of
mean,
wild.
here's my issue is that one, this is likely just a money play. If just like if we don't have to pay third party to do fact checking, blah blah, whatever, we can move to community notes, whatever. It's terrible that so many things get made, especially when you're I was gonna say $1 billion, but a multi-billion-dollar
Right.
company. Like that's a drop in the bucket at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But
Especially when
whatever.
Facebook has been just the way where people had to say, "Hey, did you know you were live streaming a shooting on your platform?" So yeah, they need
Yeah.
somebody needs to be somebody needs to be watching the feed and making sure that just not that wild things are not happening. That this is going to come back to bite them, I'm sure, before before
Oh,
we're
no
too far
doubt.
in 2025.
The other issue though is you're trying to copy a platform that's also not doing great right now. You know what I mean? It's like if you're using Twitter as your example of like, well, it works on Twitter, so we're going to do it. Like, is it really working on Twitter though? like, like yeah, they're kind of
I
losing
guess
people and screwing.
financially, you could argue that it is because pretty much all the major advertisers that left have come back because of the political shifting winds at this point.
Some have. There's still several that aren't on there yet,
I mean,
but
who didn't come? Cause Disney came back, IBM came. Like who isn't back?
I'd have to go back and look. There was a couple of the food and drink companies that used to spend a bunch of money on there from the articles I saw, and they weren't back yet. But it's an interesting thing, to see where it's all going to end up, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or whatever, because we're still seeing the numbers still growing on Blue Sky. I think the other issue is too, you're starting people just realize that now uh, Facebook is also doing AI bots that make actual posts on like Facebook and Twitter. I mean on Instagram, which is weird. So because there was one, and I just saw this one yesterday. It was a it was supposed to represent a black woman
Oh boy.
who had a bio done up, which she doesn't take any crap and blah blah blah, like stereotypical dumb stuff. But she was making, and it was weird. This is the weird part. It wasn't like the bot was just making a post of like, "Hey, here was what happened in the football game today" or whatever. It was actually like, "Oh, we're starting 2025 with the charity drive and blah blah blah." And it's like, wait, your fake bot got to post about a fake charity drive with an AI image of like clothes in boxes and stuff? And it's like, what is the purpose of this? Like, genuinely, like, are you so hurting for engagement that you need to make up a fake picture and a fake statement about a charity that's not even happening to get people to comment? Like, is that the situation we're in? Because otherwise, like, dude, legitly, I do not. Because somebody even asked me, like, what are they trying to get? I was like, man, I don't know. Like, I don't understand what. Because again, I would get it if it was just to get people to chat more about topical stuff going on in the news or sports or whatever. Okay, cool. You just drum up a couple of bots. They make sure your community sees whatever the news is, and that's like your way. I wouldn't agree with it, but I at least get it. But having your bots like play on sympathy, making up both images and events, that's wild. Like I don't know.
While unleashing the gates on hate speech on other parts of your platform, I
Yeah,
don't
like imagine if those
understand.
cross.
Yeah,
Right? Like what happens when you have multiple bots just making random statements? Like I
and the community having to try to figure out how to fact check them.
yeah, it's weird, man. I don't get it. I for real don't know the benefit to that. And I think that's because usually you can go, all right, I get the money play, or oh, I get how this is going to make
Well, like
more
you say, in
advertising
the
dollars.
short term, they will save money because I'm sure they were paying that third party fact checking service. So yeah, in the short term, there's going to be savings. In the long term, something's probably going to happen. It's going to cost you
Oh,
money.
sure. No, I'm talking about like the bot situation. Because even when they said they were going to have bots that were going to create engagement or whatever, I didn't think it was going to be like this, where it's just completely made up stuff that they're just sharing. Like,
Well, I think this is probably just to see what people can get away with. It's basically just like you said, driving engagement. What it's if you remove any morality from the discussion, it's just a science experiment.
Probably. I mean, somebody's benefiting, whether it's just information gathering, seeing what human tolerance is, like something. Somebody wants that info. I just don't know who it is. But yeah, it's crazy time, man. It's a crazy time. I saw that and I literally was just like, this isn't even a real picture. And that's not even a real event. Like, what is the bot even trying to do? You know? But we'll see, man. Social media is about to be wild in 2025. That's all we know. But yeah, let's talk about what we learned because there are a couple of things this week that could be interesting for people to know. So, what do you got?
Yeah, and I won't tell you that Madden 25 is a great game, but they have had some of the most transformational patches any game has had this year. Its latest one, first of all, it's about to be the middle of January. This is the time when you ordinarily start ramping your football game down because we're almost at the end of the football season. It'll probably be free in a month after the Super Bowl. They dropped an update. They changed, I think there's 800 new changes to playbooks. And again, that's, now in previous years they begin to say, here's a new play here, but I mean there are entire new playbooks added for several of the teams. And I mean these are like historical plays that got you that they tell you in the update like, hey, we added pistol gun tight whatever formation. This is the touchdown that Terry McLaurin scored against Arizona in Week 5. That's where this play came from. Like, okay, Madden. Well, you've had
Ooh, do you get the Stumblerooski that they
I don't know.
use?
I don't know if the Stubble-Rooski is in it. It may be. A lot of them, they just say who scored the touchdown. Then you kind of got to go back and try to figure out, okay, which touchdown is this? So it may be.
Because, dude, I saw the Stumblerooski and I just wanted to clap. Like that was good.
I saw somebody describe that as, this is the call an ambulance, but not for me meme if
Yeah,
it was a play.
basically, so well done, so well
Right?
done. Yeah, man, I think that's cool though. Because
Shout
like you're
out to them
saying,
for still updating the thing in January. They've
exactly.
got all our money at this point. They're not getting any more money from us.
That's the biggest thing I think of. Just like, hey, here's one. You'll probably get one more final update. After the playoffs or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's cool that they're saying, hey, you paid us, we got our money, whatever. We're at least gonna make this game as good as possible for you to get another 2-3 months out of it before we get to the draft and training camps and all that other stuff and get you ready for next year. So that's pretty cool,
Yeah,
man.
because a whole new playbook in January is wild.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. That I If a game wants to give you more DLC to get your money's worth out of it, I'm rarely gonna hate on it. You
Essentially
know?
free DLC. They
Yeah,
could have. There are people that probably would have paid them for this, but no, all of it. And there was also bug fixes and patches and all the usual stuff too. So this is one of the. I've been covering sports games for 20 years. This is one of the biggest and most transformational patches I have ever seen.
and see that makes me not. It doesn't. It makes me happier in the sense of like, if the companies are already getting all that money, like, cool, give a little something back to your
Yeah,
community so they're engaged for the next game, right? Because now they look and go, I spent, let's say, between game DLC, whatever, you spent $150 over the last year on the game, and you're like, but I didn't feel so bad because it gave me a lot of stuff. So when the new one comes out, you're like, well, hey, I'm gonna get 6-7 months worth of play out of this and updates and stuff.
yeah.
Like, all right, makes it
Because
because it's hard
they're
when you
still
spend
having
that money
Madden.
and don't get
Yeah,
anything.
they're still having Madden tournaments. For there to still be getting new playbooks added at this point of the season is wild.
Yeah, I'm all in support of that. Now, mine, okay, this is a weird one because this is a thing I knew, but I wanted to share it because after seeing comments on this, I don't think a lot of people knew this was a thing. But I saw this video of a guy. He got out of his car and ran over because there was a sloth kind of laying a couple of feet into the road. So he's trying to like get it out. But as he goes to pick it up, he freaks out a little bit because he gets a couple of bugs on him. He thinks the sloth has like lice or something. So he's trying to carry it real carefully so he can get it to a tree and let it get out of the way. But what people don't realize is that sloths actually have effectively a whole ecosystem on their body, like living in their fur, like bugs, moth, whatever, algae, And
Yeah.
it's a combination of these things helping protect and help the sloth live as much as the sloth is helping them live by giving them a place to stay and you know hatch their eggs and all this other stuff, which is crazy. I don't know if it's just because sloths just move really slowly, like because of where they hang out. Like I don't know. I just know that's a thing that exists. So if you want to go down a rabbit hole, that's a crazy thing that we have animals that have a whole other thing just living on them full time, like a whole mini biome of stuff happening. And a lot of people just didn't know it. Like I found out when I was younger, just because interest in zoo stuff. So I don't think this is a very common thing that people know. But I was surprised and went, you know what? I'm gonna put that on the show because apparently every other person that was making a comment didn't seem to know about it. So there you go. Maybe you learned something today from the show that you didn't expect to learn. This is why we have this segment. But all right, let's get into a couple of topics here. So, for those of you that don't know, but you probably do if you're a heavy gamer, you may have heard the name Asmongold. He is a streamer slash YouTuber at this point, I guess, mostly known for streaming. But this dude's had a rough go in 2024. It seemed like every couple of months he was either making a comment about some controversy or something he didn't know about, or just making a statement that led to a situation. Now, prior to this one, he had decided, and I need to remember, I can't remember if he said it was Israelis or Palestinians, basically came from a lower civilization, effectively, which in the political climate of everything, like, it doesn't matter what side you're talking about. You can't, like, dude, like, even if you're picking a side, which, politics aside, fine, whatever. There's no need to degrade a whole civilization of either side of people. Like, that's just dumb. And get led to him getting banned on Twitch
Yeah.
for, I think, a week or something, whatever.
It's
Made
kind
this
of
promise.
wild. That's the penalty also for deriding a whole
Yeah, exactly.
civilization.
But he says, you're right. I need to do better, blah, blah, blah. Has another thing happened. Well, I shouldn't have said it, blah, blah, blah. Well, this latest one, he's talking about hoflation. Like, what?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go over because I want to read his exact tweet to people because
Yeah, because
I don't
to
I don't want to
even
get this
begin,
one wrong and get myself in trouble.
right?
Honestly, because like this almost makes no sense that you are a YouTuber streamer on Twitch and
Did you have a brand of any kind and think this is
but
acceptable?
this is what he posted. This was on Twitter from yesterday. He puts up everybody's always talking about hoflation, but it's actually the opposite. I used to be able to go to GameStop or Target and see his words now, hot
Right?
bitches working there every day. This is literally what he posted, word for
Yeah.
word. Says, now it's just hogs. Why? Because those girls are at home doing OnlyFans now instead of working.
And then he hit send.
Bruh, like,
He thought that was okay. After, as you said, getting in trouble for most of 2024 for posting and saying dumb things, he woke up and chose violence for, I've lost track of how many times at this point.
bro, like he literally like you insulted poor people, you insulted retail workers, you insulted
Women.
women in general. Like you like you just checking boxes in this post.
Who is
Like,
everybody? He said everybody talking. Who is maybe everybody you hang out with, which is again, tell it on yourself.
oh,
I
and not only
went through,
that, then in the comment, like when people obviously people are going to start
yeah,
responding because it has like 4 million views or whatever. People are like, well, OnlyFans is work. OnlyFans is DLC for female streamers. Is what he put up. I'm just like, dude, you're just really gonna go after
again,
everybody here.
somebody that's a streamer. If OnlyFans didn't work, Twitch didn't work, bro. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, we all, grew up as nerds. Our hobbies weren't popular, and yet when some of us grow up, get power, money, a platform, we want to gatekeep for other people. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, I just don't know what he's doing. Like,
And
even
again,
looking at all
in
these
trouble for
responses.
all of 2024, it seemed like. I don't remember the last time I saw a headline. It was, hey, Asmongold has a really good stream. Asmongold, that reaches whatever rank, and the last 9 or 10 times I've seen this dude's name, it's been some kind of. It's usually him getting banned, him saying something stupid, etc., etc. And then of course he's edible. I promise I'll be better. I know.
Oh, and not just that. Like, people were also pointing out the hypocrisy of some things in his comments
Right.
saying, well, it says, didn't you just admit on a video recently to eating moldy snacks in the past with fly larvae crawling on them? Like,
That.
that's wild. You know,
Yeah.
like what? That's a thing that happened? All right. Oh, I just watched a video of you reacting to the Lion King speed run and you just repeat what for 30 minutes. That's your job. Like, that's, I
Right.
mean, so he's getting tore up left and right, dude. I
His
don't even.
his apartment dwelling, whatever it is apparently so filthy that when he finally cleaned it, he found multiple dead rats. I mean,
The best comment on here though, really, is kind of how I felt when I read this. It says, Asmon, the bills can't possibly be this high. Come on. And I'm like, yeah, that's sort of how I felt like, dude, because we talked about this a little bit. This feels to me like somebody that just got too comfortable. You know, been on top for so long, probably making a couple million a year, you know, between all the subs and sponsors and whatever. And just, you
if
know,
he's not, I'll go farther. If he's not in therapy, he absolutely needs to be, because this behavior is, I mean, we like to assume that it's calculated for engagement. This may just be a repeated series of cries for help. I'm not convinced he can stop himself from this behavior at this point.
yeah, this has been a continual thing, like I said, for the better part of a year now. And it's, my thing is like, what would even possess you to think at all these recent things were okay? You know what I mean? Like, I don't like, because again, if you're
Yeah, like you
not
say,
having real issues, which he may be, you know, I don't know his personal health or anything, but he might be having real
at this
issues.
point, I mean, you can't figure as good as if he's living among dead rats and fly larvae. That is, if he's playing a character, he's one of the greatest actors I've ever seen. Because everything we're seeing in public would lead you to believe he is unstable, unhinged, and severely lacking in anything that remotely resembles impulse control.
I just don't get it,
He
you
may not have
know?
meant for this to be his brand, but at this point, that's what his brand has become.
But you know, I will say, again, coming back, I've seen people with money and I wouldn't say power, you know, so much,
I think we can say power at this
at
point.
least higher status that have done similar things that you just get comfortable and you think, oh, there's no repercussions or nobody's going to say anything or nobody's going to come after me or my money's secure. And then
When
we
you
see
when you
people do
say
the wrong thing.
literal millions of people watch this man, so yeah, I'm going to say he has power.
Yeah,
There are
fair.
people who hang on this man's. There are people that, regardless of what fire he sets in the comments, will still jump in to defend him and say you're doing cancel culture if you speak out against this. Like this ridiculous rant. There are people defending this.
Yeah, I just don't understand. Even looking at it again, I don't like again, we were talking earlier, you just don't need to hit send, man. Like I don't even know what the purpose of this would, because he doesn't even need engagement. Like, he could make any
Yeah,
post and it's going to get
as you
half
said,
a million to
literally
a
him
million views anyway, right? Just
him
because of who he is.
reacting to anything. So yeah, it doesn't. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't
Yeah, this was a
understand.
crazy one for me. I just don't understand, but hey, it's out there. I'm sure this will be news in the gaming space for the rest of the week, and we'll just see what happens. Now, a crazier one that this one really caught me off guard. I say that, but I guess if it could happen to Ubisoft, it was going to happen. You know, is where the rest of the year has been, or the rest of 2024, I guess. But it turns out there was an article posted earlier today that a studio they work with, and I want to get the name of the studio right here, Brandoville Studios in Indonesia, which is a now closed art and animation office for good reasons, and I tell you here in a second, is apparently there were allegations of both physical and emotional abuse at this place. Now, to Ubisoft's credit, they immediately were like, we don't have anything to do with this. This is not how we deal with stuff. We don't approve of partners doing this. Their official statement that they put out early was just, we're deeply disturbed by the recent reports surrounding Brandeville Studios. We strongly condemn all forms of abuse, and our thoughts are with the affected employees. Apparently, there were reports brought up, and I want to get, because some of the details on this were kind of crazy. So some of the most extreme allegations from someone who worked at Brandeville from 2019 to 2024 was a claim that they were forced to slap themselves 100 times as punishment for perceived failure at work. What? Like, that's crazy, man. That's
Yeah, there's
crazy.
no world in which anything like that is remotely okay.
Oh, they said, in another instance, we saw a video of an employee visibly dazed being interrogated after she was reportedly forced to slam her own head into a door frame. Like, what was even going on here? One claimed that their finances were being controlled. Just like, what's even going on?
Every week we end up talking about something in gaming that is like completely ridiculous and beyond the pale, and then the next week something worse happens. It's been this way pretty much since we started. And these are the things we're hearing about. I shudder to think what's happening in places that don't get the coverage, that don't make the big games and work on the big games, that we're not hearing about. And as you alluded to, in decades of doing this is one of the worst years I have seen a publisher have in terms of just horrible news, horrible, just everything literally that could go wrong for a publisher in a year has gone wrong. From Assassin's Creed, its anchor game pretty much not even being able to release. By the way, this studio worked on Assassin's Creed Shadows, so at this point, I don't know if this game's ever coming out. I just will be at this point shocked if we ever see this game. It supposedly is coming in March. And
Yeah.
part of that being delayed was the racist, essentially Gamergate 2.0 controversy that it got swallowed up by. Prince of Persia, another one of their big franchises, dropped, did nothing. X Defiant, their shared universe shooter, it dropped, and after multiple delays, it got this is epically bad.
Oh, and let's be real. This studio that ended up getting shut down, rightfully so, worked on a lot of their big titles. I mean, it says like Assassin's Creed, Dark Souls, Last of Us. Like, this was a real studio.
Wait, Last of Us isn't theirs, I don't believe.
Okay, Last of Us wasn't there. That's fair. But the fact of the matter is, this is a company that worked on a lot of things. So who knows how many other companies or games are going to be affected here, which is kind of crazy, right? So it's not even just an Ubisoft partner. This was a studio that worked with multiple people. So how this even got kept secret for this long is kind of a surprise, that nobody checked in on these folks or these allegations. Because one of these, like I said, since 2019. And you've had partners with all these major companies making these big
Yes,
games.
they worked apparently on Age of Empires, and
Yeah.
the person who wrote this story has reached out to Microsoft, and I'm sure they'll get the same. We denounce all forms of abuse.
So yeah, you have to know that as soon as those stories come out, that studio's done, because none of the other big companies can work with you now.
Imposed a strict work schedule and daily Christian worship. There's so many laws being broken here.
Oh, of course, of course.
Every paragraph of this story is like, what? Huh?
It's crazy, dude. It's crazy.
How is this possible?
And what's wild, this is after all the stuff from Riot and everything else, all the stuff we had, Blizzard and everything, the last couple of years. Because a lot of that was already bad. This is just on the level of absurd. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost a whole different side of craziness. Like getting somebody to slap themselves 100 times.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, we've heard about crunch. I've been reporting on this is this is just bizarre
That's
stuff.
what I'm saying. Like, this
We
doesn't
all
even
know
make
that
sense.
the game industry employees are getting the ones that get to keep their jobs are getting worked, to the
Oh,
bone.
sure, sure.
This is just I've never seen anything like this, and I find myself saying that far too often. I've never seen it, and yeah,
Yeah, so
this
if
is
you're an
unreal.
Ubisoft employee right now, like, you got my sympathies, man. Like, this has been a rough 12 months. Like, it's been a rough 12 months. I don't, to the point that genuinely, not even just joking, Ubisoft might not look like Ubisoft by middle of 2026 at this point.
The rumors are that Tencent is hovering, and at this point, it'd be hard to imagine anybody running the company any worse than this. So yeah, I
Well,
can't.
if you can't even get your breadwinner title out, and hell, at this point, even if it does come out, it might barely meet minimum expectations,
Yeah, because
sales wise.
who at this point, other than the people that run, like Assassin's Creed blog.com, who can say they're still looking forward to this game? It's hard to imagine.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, that's the thing that carried most of their companies. So if your lead title can't pull its weight, they're gonna probably end up having to sell. So I wouldn't be shocked if by the end of this year we hear that there is an agreement being made, or some 50-60% of the companies being sold off or whatever. It's just kind of the situation we're in. It's kind of crazy, dude. Kind of crazy. But all right, let's wrap things up in the dinner table. And this one's actually pretty speculative. We'll call it that. With it being beginning of the year, I'm going to ask you, Brian, what are you hoping to see or hoping to get out of gaming in 2025?
I'm hoping that single player experiences make a comeback because we have seen so many good franchises get driven off of a cliff because the executive said, "Hey, it's got to have live service. Got to have live service is what's hot." If your game is good, yes. If your game is terrible, looking at you, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. That's a perfect example of the Arkham games were incredible. Everybody loved them. They were single player games that delivered a great single player experience. And again, people, then Gotham Knight, they started trying to cram, hey, here's more some multiplayer, some live service, and it dove off a cliff. They
Mm.
didn't, they heeded none of the warnings and came back with, hey, the Suicide Squad are going to kill the Justice League, and it's going to be online all the time. These boss battles and all the resources just showed you at any point they could have taken the Arkham, resources and engine and made a Justice League game where the Justice League beats up the supervillains as comic books and movies have gone for, before Guardians of the Galaxy came out, essentially. They've been trying to Guardians way too hard ever since they have desperately at WB been trying to turn the Suicide Squad into the Guardians of the Galaxy, and just hopefully that's over with. But this was just like movies, TV. They're cratering so many things just by trying to force things to fit.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. You know, in video games, I guess I'd like to see more of I guess I'll call them like the chill co op games, where whether it's online or not, like the don't starve together type games, where we have like simple tasks, you can get on, hang out with some people. And it's almost like you're gaming as the catalyst to hang out together and do something. You know, I'm kind of a fan of seeing that make a little bit of a comeback because I don't think I've seen too many of those recently. I would say as far as tabletop games, I don't even know if this is exclusive to like Magic or board games or whatever. I probably want to just see more of the experience being considered at big events or conventions. Because I feel like even when I've gone to PAX and some of these others, like it's kind of like, all right, there's a bunch of exhibits or exhibitors, not even exhibits, just a bunch of places you can go to people's booths. And then you don't even, and then I guess there's like your I guess interview panels and stuff. And that's kind of it. It feels like those have been the thing. It's like if you have artists, why not have like how to draw things or cool art auctions or I don't know, just like more things that people can take away from the experience of the event other than just like walking through and being there. I feel like we've kind of gotten away from that a bit, and it'd be cool to see more of those things added. Even if it's just like having mascots from different companies around so you can take pictures with them and, whatever, just silly things. I think make those events way more fun, and they don't really even cost that much more to put on. Hell, some of those could make you more money, honestly, as part of the shows. So yeah, I'd like to see more of that. Because I mean, hell, I think even last time I was at PAX, I didn't go last year, but the year before, there wasn't even like a clear cut like exhibitor hall where you could just go buy stuff. It was like a little section here and a little section there, and then some for the gaming things were in the annex hall, and it was like even that just made it weird. Because one of the biggest, as I do, you go to a Gen Con or something, whatever, you just walk through the sales hall or whatever, you can spend all day in there. Like you can take a whole
Absolutely.
day of the convention, spend $300 and come out looking like a pack mule, like because you
Yeah.
bought 85 things or whatever, right? Just even that is a big deal. So yeah, I want to get back to the experiential things in gaming, I guess, as we go through 2025. But all right, I think that's good enough for our first episode of the year. So, Brian, why don't you everybody they can find you on social media?
All right, I'm Brian Sonic on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and you can read my writings over at App Trigger.
And you can find me everywhere at PowrDragn, PowrDragn. And if you're following me, especially for Magic stuff over in YouTube, I got a whole bunch of stuff coming out over the next 6 or 8 weeks. So you probably want to follow and don't miss some of that. But as always, wherever you are watching or listening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Please remember to take care of yourselves and your family. Remember, be awesome. And most importantly, be awesome to each other.